Hi, I'm Fiona McRae and I'm here to talk to you about travel insurance. I thought I'd give you a little update of me first and tell you about my story and why I know so much about travel insurance. So I was diagnosed with breast cancer 15 years ago when my baby was 5 months old. So I'd had my chemotherapy first and then I was waiting to have my surgery and radiotherapy, and my oncologist said to me, why don't you go off and be a family, have a bit of a break, rest, recuperate, come back, and we'll pick up the rest of your treatment. Now, I'd worked in insurance, so I knew trying to get travel insurance was going to be quite difficult. I didn't actually realize that I would actually be considered uninsurable. So it really, at first, it worried me, and I had to go back and speak to my oncologist to wonder why I was so uninsurable. And it just turned out because I hadn't had the cancer actually removed. Um, so that got me thinking, and I just thought, actually, the way they're looking at cancer um, for travel insurance isn't right. I wasn't asking anybody to insure my life. I was only asking them to insure my holiday, and that sort of sowed a seed in my mind that I needed to do something about it. And then when I started to talk to people as I was finishing off chemo and saying I was going on holiday, I realized it was a bigger problem than just me not being able to get cover. So after I came back from holiday, I started to do some research, and I decided then that I was going to change, and I was going to change this and do something about it. So I found an underwriter who actually would listen to me. That was quite a big job because I spoke to many people in the market and nobody really wanted to, it's not broken. Why do you need to fix it? So I finally found an underwriter that would actually listen to me and did actually want to do something about it. And actually they had really started to do something about it as well. So I joined them and we created a brand called Insurance With. Now, Insurance With wasn't just about creating a brand so people were able to go and get travel insurance for their holidays. It was about trying to create a change in the market to show it could be done. We could cover people at an affordable price. Um, and it's still, the underwriter could still make money as well. So what we wanted were other people to copy us, and sort of 10 years down the line, that's what's happened. There are quite a lot of other providers out in the market now offering affordable travel insurance for people with cancer. So our job's not finished, unfortunately. We've got to look at secondary cancers. And again, that's a big issue now, trying to cover people with secondary cancers. Um, Again, it's people just not understanding how treatable cancer is now. And there are people that have secondary diagnosis and live for many years. They might have an incurable condition, but they're not uninsurable and they should be able to get cover to go on holiday. So that's why I know quite a bit about travel insurance, and I'm here to talk to you about it. But it's not just about saying, there's only one brand. It's about where you can go and to look. And I'm going to talk generally about travel insurance. I'm not going to talk about Insurance With specifically. Um, so that's really what I wanted to cover. So what you need to think about when you're buying travel insurance, if you've got a pre-existing medical condition. I mean, my first tip is always make sure you declare everything that you've got. Don't think that you're going to miss some pieces out because you're trying to save money. That it doesn't always work like that. Declare everything. Let the underwriter decide what is and isn't relevant. Because should something happen, the first thing any underwriter will do, or any travel insurer will do, will be to get your medical records to make sure that they match up with what you've declared. Now, if they don't match up, they're not saying that they're not going to cover you, but it will delay them authorizing treatment for you. And sometimes, you're in such a tight situation, you don't need those delays. It might be that you just haven't declared something because you didn't think it was important. It would have no bearing on the policy and you'll still be covered, but it will delay those treatment decisions. So I would urge you just to make sure you declare everything. If you're not sure, talk to your travel insurance provider, tell them everything, and they are the best people to advise you what you should and shouldn't declare. You will get everything in writing back from them, and just check that everything is as you've told them. Make sure you've got it all. So that is my one, first tip. The other one is think about where you're going on holiday. It's really nice to travel off to those remote islands, but should something serious happen and you do need urgent medical treatment, the chances are you're not going to get it on a remote island, and you will have to be moved. So just think about where you're going. Think about, I know it's really boring when you're trying to book a lovely holiday, and you don't want to think about what would happen if the worst happens, but think about what medical facilities are near where you're traveling to. As I say, it's not a pleasant thing to think about, and it is really boring, but I would urge you to do that. Chances are nothing's going to happen to you. But if it does, then at least you know where to go, who to contact, and you're safe, and you do know that you're going to get that treatment you need. So they're the two definite things that you should think about. Now, there's lots of travel insurance about, and lots of people now aim, and it's something, the aim that we have at Insurance With, is that we try to cover as many people as possible, but you might be restricted to where you can travel to, depending on where you are in your treatment plan, depending on how well you are. Sometimes we'll say to people, particularly if they're quite sick, is that we can only cover them for mainland Europe, because we know if the worst comes to the worst and we need to get you home really quickly, we know we can do it by road. If you're somewhere that's a flight away, that adds another layer of complication trying to get you back. Not everybody is fit enough to fly, and if we need to put you in an air ambulance, you still need to be fit enough to fly to go into an air ambulance. So that sometimes has a bearing on where you can and can't get covered for. Also, what insurers are looking for nowadays is stability in your condition. So if you've been stable on your treatment for at least 3 months, then you should be able to get, an affordable quote. Again, it's all about stability, and that's the important thing, is that if something happens after you've been stable for many months on your treatment, that's unfortunate, and that's what insurance is for. But to start off with, to get a quote, the insurers are looking for stability. Unfortunately, if you are waiting for tests and treatment that aren't routine, in the majority, you are going to struggle to get cover, because the insurer doesn't know what risk they're trying to cover, because you might have an undiagnosed condition. So that can be difficult. But if it's just a routine scan or something, for example, if you're on 3-month scans, that wouldn't really have a bearing on it, because that's a routine scan. It's for a new diagnosis, that they would tend to decline that on. So I think that sort of covers off the basics there on travel insurance.
That's great. Thanks, Fiona. So obviously at the moment, no one's traveling much of anywhere. Hopefully that will change at some point. But what does COVID mean? What, in terms of, I guess, cover and people's ability to travel, what are the sorts of things anyone should be paying attention to, but also if you've got a pre-existing medical condition?
Okay, so COVID, the main thing with COVID is that if you have got a pre-existing medical condition, make sure that you've got that all declared. It shouldn't have any bearing on the cost of your travel insurance. But what I would point out is that you need to look for travel insurance that is going to offer you some form of COVID cover. I will say up front that at the moment, there is no provider out there that is covering cancellation for change of government advice to do with COVID. So that's really, really clear. There is nobody there. So, we've just been told we're going into a lockdown, and they've banned all international travel. So if you'd booked a holiday and now that's been cancelled because of this, the chances are, unless you've had a policy that's been bought pre-COVID, the chances are you're not going to be covered for cancellation for that. However, saying that, there are lots of policies available now that will cover you if you personally catch COVID before you're going on holiday. So, for example, if you catch COVID 14 days, up to 14 days before you're going on holiday, you need to cancel. There are products that are going to cover you for that. If you go to the airport and you're denied boarding because your temperature is too high, they suspect you've got COVID, there are policies that are going to cover you for that. Also, if you're abroad and you catch COVID, there are policies that will cover you for that. They'll cover you to isolate, so you can't come back as planned, so you've got to isolate for 2 weeks or whatever. There are products in the market that will cover you for that. I will stress they're not covered as standard. And a lot of the time you've got to buy an add-on for it. So check that. The more premium products tend to have it as covered as standard, but then there are products that you buy and you buy as an add-on, and there's different variations that you can buy, but just check. But as I say, if you want cancellation for changes in government advice, at the moment that is just not available. So that's unfortunate, really. But other than that, hopefully, when we're given the green light, we can all start traveling again. There are products available, and having cancer will not bar you from being able to buy travel insurance because of COVID.
That's great. Thank you. That's kind of good news, I guess.
Well, in this dark time, it's relatively good news. Yeah.
So then what about Brexit? Because we're going to enter a perfect storm of COVID and Brexit very soon. So what does Brexit mean if you need travel insurance?
Right. Okay. So that is probably a more serious point when you've got cancer. So a lot of people that I know that have cancer always use an EHIC card, and a lot of them, although I nag them not to do this, travel without travel insurance and depend on their EHIC card for any treatment when they're abroad. Now, if we go out without a deal, there is no EHIC card, so you will need to get travel insurance. It's quite serious, the costs. If you're abroad, there just won't be any government step in. You can break a bone in a hospital in Spain, that can cost you up to 10,000-15,000 pounds depending on what treatment you need. So it's really important that you do get travel insurance. And a lot of people that travel without travel insurance and depend on their EHIC say it's because the travel insurance is unaffordable because of their medical condition. And I would like to stress, I don't think it is. I think, if you look in the right places, you can get that cover, but make sure you declare all your conditions, because of what I said at the beginning, making sure that your declaration matches with your medical records actually speeds up the treatment process and the authorizing of treatment. So so that's the big thing for people with cancer, is losing the EHIC. I really don't know what's going to happen. I don't think anybody does. I think we're all hopeful we're going to get a deal, but I don't know. So that's going to be the big thing that's going to affect us.
Great. So we need to keep an eye on that, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So what would you say then are your kind of top tips for somebody who's had a cancer diagnosis and is looking for treatment? Or sorry, looking for travel insurance. They're hopefully going to get treated. Yeah. What are the top tips?
Okay, so my top tip is, don't go through every comparison site on the internet. Go to one, because they all use the same medical screening system. So the chances are you're not going to get a big variation in cover and cost. So go to one, pick one, go to one, and then get the prices from there. And then look for another travel insurance provider that's not on the internet. That's not on the comparison sites, that will use a different medical screening system. So Insurance With and a lot of other brands in the market using a screening system called Protective. So always search out a brand that uses that, and then just compare it to what you can get on a comparison site. And basically, if you can do that, you have got the majority of the market covered, and you can make sure you're getting an affordable quote. Sometimes if you are declined cover, it's not because you're uninsurable, it's just because you don't actually fit into the boxes on the computer system. And unfortunately, that can happen a lot with cancer because, as you and I know, Kywin, that cancer is a very individual disease. So everybody's different. We've all got, different treatment regimes and things like that. So don't let that, dissuade you just because you can't get cover online. Always speak to the provider as well. Give them a call. A lot of them do one-to-one medical screenings, so you can go through and actually talk to a medical underwriter and explain your individual situation, and they can individually underwrite your risk, really. So we would always stress that you do that. I know sometimes, from personal experience and talking to people, people can feel like it's really upsetting. It can be soul destroying, continually repeating, your medical diagnosis to people. And I do appreciate that. But normally, if you look for somebody that specializes in one-to-one medical screening, I did say I wouldn't keep pushing Insurance With, but Insurance With do that. There are not many other brands out there that do that. Sort of one-to-one medical screening, but that's sometimes what you need, particularly if you're on like a new drug, or you're on a trial drug or something like that. You probably need to be individually underwritten, and more people with cancer are on trials and things like that. So it's not unheard of, and it doesn't mean they can't go on holiday, but they just need to be looked at on a more individual basis to, so to afford them to go on holiday, really. So also, generally in travel insurance, what everybody should realize is there's no one size fits all. All travel insurance policies are different, and it's depending on what you need to make sure that you're covered for it. So, for example, a lot of travel insurance policies will have only specific reasons that you can cancel your holiday. So if you're made redundant, if you're sick, provided you've declared any medical conditions, etc., etc. But a lot of people, there's lots of things that could happen that wouldn't be covered under that very, very tight specification. But there are some wider travel insurance policies that will maybe cover you for cancellation for any cause beyond your control. There'll be some exclusions. For example, now, pandemic cover and things like that, that won't be covered, as I said earlier on, to do with COVID. So check that. Also, again, look at the delayed cover that you've got. Is it adequate? Is that what you need? Also, if you miss your flight. So, for example, a lot of travel insurers have very specific reasons of covering you if you miss your flight. So, for example, if you're in an accident on the way to the airport, you're covered. But if you're in a tailback of an accident on the way to the airport, you're not covered. So some travel insurers will cover it, some won't. So it's little things like that. And again, I know it's really boring, but you're going to have to check your wording, because you can't just depend on like the top line figures and say, well, I'm covered for delay, and assume that you can claim for everything. So I know it's really dull, but these are the type of things that you really need to look out for. I'm a bit of a travel insurance geek, so I don't mind doing things like that, but yeah, I do realize that it is boring, but just remember, one size does not fit all with travel insurance.
That's great, Fiona. Thank you. So we need to do a little bit of research on a price comparison site, and also for providers that aren't on a price comparison site. We need to declare all of our pre-existing medical conditions so they are covered if something goes wrong. And we need to remember that no one size fits all. And then also read the fine print, which I'm embarrassed to admit I rarely do. So
I know it's the dullest thing in the world, I know, but you don't leave it until you need to make a claim to read it.
Absolutely.
You get 14 days to read it after you bought it, and you can get full refund if it's not right. I would urge you to definitely look at it in those 14 days.
And probably to buy it then 14 days before you're going on holiday at least.
No, actually, you should actually buy it when you book your holiday. So you're covered from that day. absolutely buy it when you book your holiday. Even if you've just put a deposit down, you still need that, because you'd want to be able to claim for your deposit, because sometimes the deposits can be quite hefty as well. So definitely buy when you book.
Thank you so much, Fiona. That's been
No
great.
worries.
We are going to finish this bit of the presentation now, and we will go to live Q&A online. So we will see everybody in a minute. Thanks so much.
Thanks.